Aloha mai kako. Good morning and welcome to the first ever Our Kakaʻako Kulia Entrepreneurial Workshop. My name is Kirstin Kahaloa, Kamehameha Schools Portfolio Manager in the Community and Aina Resiliency Group, focused on supporting and growing our local food system, including entrepreneurs in agriculture and food. Mahalo for joining us live in Zoom. Our Kakaʻako and Kamehameha Schools are thrilled to present this free virtual workshop for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and students. Aloha e nā haumana. Kulia in Hawaiian means to strive, which is a fitting name for this session that is designed to provide inspiration and mana'o for the journey that entrepreneurs embark on when starting and growing their businesses. We know it's not an easy task. You will hear from our Kakaʻako commercial tenant, Stuart Kam, Kamehameha Schools alumnus and owner and founder of ATH Sport. He will be sharing his entrepreneurial story as well as business insights and advice. He will also take us on a virtual tour of his shop on Cook Street. But before we begin, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. All of you as attendees are joined in on listen-only mode. We will have an audience question and answer session after Stuart's presentation. Please feel free to submit any questions you have at any time during the workshop via the Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. Due to time constraints, we may not be able to get to every question during the Q&A, but alas, the workshop will be recorded and the video will be shared on the Our Kakaʻako website at ourkakaako.com and on the Our Kakaʻako Facebook page following the session. We will also have a prize drawing giveaway at the end of the session. All registered attendees are eligible for a chance to win the ATH Sport electrolyte drink mix with shaker bottle. That's a $57 value, so it's a super exciting prize. You must be present to win. So please stick with us throughout the Zoom webinar to participate in the prize drawing. I will announce the lucky winner at the end of the session. Everybody excited? I'm really excited to learn more and introduce you to our guest speaker, Stuart Kam, owner and founder of ATH Sport. He is a successful local entrepreneur who started his company in 2012. He actually didn't plan on starting a business. He just really wanted to fill a personal need. As an athlete who is active in jiu-jitsu, surfing, and lifting weights, he was looking for a tasty, all-natural nutritional sport supplement drink designed for endurance. He couldn't find anything that met his expectations on the market, so he decided to make it himself. After initial experimentation, he shared the mix with his gym friends who loved it. Stuart recognized that this was a business opportunity. Since then, his company has grown by leaps and bounds with manufacturing and order fulfillment taking place at continental facilities. Last year, he moved into 449 Cook Street, where he has built a fitness training and jiu-jitsu workout area, a kitchen and demonstration set for videotaping, and a local fulfillment center. We are super thrilled to kuka today with you, Stuart. Everyone here, let's give him a warm virtual aloha. Welcome, Stuart. Aloha, Stuart.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. You know, since we're at your facility for a moment, I thought maybe I should dress in my KSPE t-shirt to just be in the spirit to exercise. But we'll go ahead and get started. I think everyone's pumped to learn more about your business. So, you know, in the true local fashion, we want to get to know who you are first. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about you, Stuart.
Yeah, so I graduated from Kamehameha Schools, Kapalama in 2016. I went up to University of San Diego to play baseball over there. And then I ended up transferring to OSU. I hurt my shoulder playing baseball. I transferred over to Oregon State, and I finished up in 2010. And then after I graduated from Oregon State, I had a small short stint in professional baseball. Played over there for a little while, and then came back home, and then worked some odd jobs here and there, and then ended up starting ATH.
That's awesome. And you were celebrating a reunion year this year. Happy reunion.
Yeah.
Can you,
Right.
although it wasn't a normal reunion, but tell us a little bit more about ATH Sport, mission, its vision, how you got it up and running.
Yeah. So when I came back home, I graduated from Oregon State with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a focus in entrepreneurship. So I knew that I always wanted to eventually start my own company. And then when I came back home, I was working odd jobs, and then I wanted a way to basically train full time in jiu-jitsu, and figured why not try to start my own company. But I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it actually was. So I was kind of ignorant to that. I went to school for entrepreneurship, but I didn't have any real world experience building a company from scratch. I didn't have any money to actually do it either. So I ended up, starting this company, and it turned into, our sports supplement. And our primary focus is, you know, building the best tasting natural sports supplements possible. And our mission basically is building healthier athletes. At the time, there wasn't a lot of natural options for sports supplements, and so that was a small niche. Nowadays, there's so many different brands out there that are similar. Every guy has their own flair to it, but yeah. So nowadays, there's a lot more. But this is 2012. There weren't really any supplement companies like us.
Yeah, we know how hard it is to start a business for sure. And Stuart, you are one of over 10,000 Native Hawaiian entrepreneurs in Hawaii, and those are only counted by DBED for those running their businesses full time. And what we have learned through that recent study is that those entrepreneurs that are Native Hawaiian tend to be younger than statewide entrepreneurs. So you really fit the mold of Native Hawaiian entrepreneurs being fairly young and inventive and innovative. So tell us a little bit more about when you started your business, what some of those challenges were. You talked a little bit about money and startup costs, but what are some of the things, hurdles you had to jump to get that business started?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think when I first started the company, obviously having access to capital was a big issue. Like, you don't have traditional means of capital. You can't go to the bank and ask for a loan when you don't have any sales. So that's obviously like a big no-brainer roadblock. But really, like, kind of actually the biggest one to me was that I didn't have the knowledge of how to actually start a company. Like, I went to school for entrepreneurship, as I mentioned. I graduated cum laude. I had good grades, but I didn't have real world experience on starting a business from scratch, let alone, like, in our industry, it's basically a digital native vertical brand is what they call it. So it's basically a brand that is naturally on the digital platform. So I didn't have the experience to be able to do that. I didn't know about, how to do Facebook ads. I didn't know how to do like Google ads. I didn't know how to set up manufacturing. So really having access to that kind of knowledge was the biggest roadblock. And so I ended up, being able to find different communities online of other e-commerce successful brands that it was really shocking to me that they were actually sharing information. But this took like years for me to kind of figure out that there were actually other entrepreneurs that had big name brands like Supply. They're like a shaving brand. There's like Beard Brand is another beard company. Um, and these guys were on this forum that they were sharing, marketing strategies and, ideas of how to implement up an online business. So that really was like the biggest roadblock, was not having the knowledge to be able to build a company, and like me trying to figure out how to get it up and running, how to get sales in the door. In fact, I did another interview with Starter Story, and they were asking that same kind of thing. What was some of the challenges? Because everyone thinks that you're going to open up a website or like a business and you're going to have all these sales. And when we first opened up the website and I threw it all together, it had like zero sales. So that's kind of the reality of, you know, e-commerce and starting your own business. Like you have high expectations and then you get like brought down back to the floor.
That's a really good point, Stuart. And, tell us a little bit about, when you got your e-commerce started really to get sales in the door, what were some of those big marketing strategies to really get people to know who you were as a business and a company?
Yeah.
And in a virtual environment, how can people try your product, right?
Yeah. So at the time, I didn't have all these big marketing plans. I didn't really know much about digital marketing and how to, build out an actual e-commerce brand. So really, when I first started, it was all word of mouth. Like guys from the gym that I trained with, their friends. At the time, there was a lot of guys that I was trained with that were in UFC and whatever. So they were able to share it on their social networks and just get some word of mouth started, but there really wasn't a whole big complex marketing plan of like how to acquire customer acquisition. Like now, now we have like pretty sophisticated systems that are set up that I didn't know about before, like SEO, like search engine optimization, and Google ads, like all our paid marketing, and how we actually acquire customers and convert them into long-term ambassadors of the brand, and the retention efforts that we do, from even like postcards to Google display ads, and getting these guys to refer their friends. So yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell. Like back then I didn't really have a marketing plan set up. It was real generic.
Mahalo, Stuart. And you talked a little bit about college and you studied entrepreneurship and I believe business. Can you talk a little bit more about, were there other clubs or activities or things you were involved in college that maybe created that platform to help you with entrepreneurship? Or if there were not, what do you wish you would have done in college to really help give you that
Yeah.
balance? Because you talked about that practical experience, right?
Yeah, I think that's another good question. Like how do you like participate in different clubs? How do you expand your knowledge? And if I had to do it all over again, I mean, I played baseball, so my time was pretty, occupied. And then after that, I was training jiu-jitsu a lot. So if I had to do it all over again and I really was like focused on entrepreneurship, I would try to get more internships, more real world kind of experience. I remember listening to Gary Vee, and he was talking about, if you want to start your own company, if you had like $10,000 or whatever to start your own company, what would you do? This guy asked him this question, and he said he actually wouldn't start his own company right off the bat. What he would do is go contact these other smaller like e-commerce brands or brands that you would want to start yourself, and offer to work for free for just like a few months, or like maybe 6 months or a year, just to get experience in the actual real world kind of entrepreneurship. So yeah, like as far as what I did, I didn't have like any real specific clubs. Like I said, I was focused in entrepreneurship for my academic studies, but I didn't have like a specific club that really pushed me or gave me experience to do that. But that's what I would recommend, is like interning, just contacting different brands and saying, hey, I'm willing to put up some sweat equity in order to learn how you guys set up all your systems. And I'm sure guys would do it. Like I would be willing to do it, get free labor from people, and you would see all our marketing.
That's a really good point. Internships are very important, and I promise we didn't tell Stuart to say that
Yeah.
as an educational institution. um, but it's funny because while I was in college, I did an internship, and that actually made me change my major because I was like, whoa, this is not what I thought it would be. Love the coursework and academics, but the real internship experience was actually what I didn't expect. So it actually helped me pivot. So there's a lot of valuable reasons to do an internship in school. And Stuart, you also talked a little bit about being an athlete, and so that took you away from certain opportunities. But we do know also the value of teamwork and the spirit, the values you learn by being an athlete, right? That also I think help embed a successful entrepreneur, right? Besides teamwork, competition, just the drive and the will to succeed, right? I think those are really important values that you can gain while you are an athlete. But when we kind of flip over to more about your business, how did you go about naming your business? What does it mean? We know Hawaiian culture, names have significant meaning. How did you go about naming your business and what does it mean?
Yeah, so ATH was short for athletics, and that basically just highlighted what we wanted to have the brand stand for. We wanted to be, the best tasting all natural sports supplements. So our focus was in athletics versus like if you were just like general kind of fitness kind of deal.
Awesome. And, describe as you've been building your business, how have you infused Native Hawaiian cultural values into the foundations of your business, the values, or just the way you go about running your business?
Yeah, actually, I was looking up earlier this morning the Kamehameha Schools values that because I went to Kamehameha from kindergarten, and I remember some of these values actually changed over time. But I would say the one that resonated the most to me was imi na'au, which was like seeking knowledge. And I think when I was in school, it was actually imi ike. I remember they used to have it all above the boards, but I think that was probably going to be like the most applicable thing to entrepreneurship is constantly going out there and seeking knowledge, talking to other people, doing their own research. And there's another saying that I really like is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it basically is saying, to seek knowledge, that you have to be proactive, you have to take initiative, you have to be responsible for your own education. Don't expect to get spoon fed. Don't expect to like have to rely on other people.
That's
Boom.
really valuable information. And, since you're talking about like the foundational values of being Napua a Pauahi, a beneficiary of Pauahi's legacy, and being a, 13-year from kindergarten, you went to
Yeah.
KS. Can you talk a little bit, Stuart, about maybe some of the maybe values you just learned as a student or things that have you've benefited from your education that you've carried with you to finish college and start this entrepreneurship career?
Yeah, I would say like kind of like what I just touched upon is, like those kind of values, like being able to seek knowledge, like taking responsibility for your own knowledge. But really what Hawaii's Foundation allowed me to do was to go and get education. And I view that, like say the Hawaiian culture to me is about a lot of it is about voyaging, taking chances, going, you leaving the shoreline, so to speak. And it's really cliche, but the idea of taking risks, the idea of calculated risks, like be smart about it, but being able to like go to the mainland, go and get educated in all these other kind of aspects and try to like rub shoulders with the top guys in the world. That kind of idea to me is what Hawaii allowed me to be able to do, gave me the opportunity to take advantage of that.
Hello, Stuart. And we want to learn more about the products and what type of nutritional supplements you have. And I think we might be viewing them on camera right now. So talk a little bit about the products you offer.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, we do a whole wide range of sports nutrition products from like pre-workouts to post-workout to protein products. And we really just try to make all of our products taste really good. while using simple, natural, kind of whole food ingredients. So that's kind of the biggest like value proposition that we have, is to make sure that not only is it healthy and like performs well, we use like effective amount of dosages, but also to make sure that they actually taste really good. So
So Stuart, talk us through like, your original, I'm gonna say OG, your OG product that you started off with, is that still on your line of products today, or have you made adjustments
yeah,
to that product over time?
so we have the original, like that photo that you see was like the original muscle recovery we had, which is basically our post workout, and we turned it into our post, because over time guys were asking like, what is this actually, for? And so we decided to name our products based upon the function. So we have like we have a post, we have a build, where it's more about the actual function of the product. So we've iterated through different versions of the actual product. But there are some products that we phased out.
And is there, how did you come up with, okay, defining that it's going to be different products for different phases of your workout or your need, versus any other way to kind of name or help people as consumers figure out what the best product for them was?
Yeah, really. So like you're kind of talking about like the product development, and really when we do the product development, we always work backwards from there. So one of the first things to do is take a look at the industry to see what's trending, what's performing really well, and work backwards from there. How could we improve upon what's already out there in the market? Because if it's already out in the market, we know that there's demand for that, and then working backwards from there and designing our own products with our contract manufacturers, which is kind of the unseen part about it. So maybe we could talk about that. Is that something you think would be interesting?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think people would love to learn more about that process, and even
Yeah.
how you went about product development after you launched one product and kind of move forward to build all your product base.
Yeah, so that's the question that we get a lot, is like, how do you actually manufacture the products? So what we do is we contract manufacture all our different products. So we have powders, we have capsules, we have like stick packs. We've previously we actually had protein bars as well. But whenever you try to develop a product such as that, you gotta find contract manufacturers to be able to make the product for you. Contract manufacturers, like I would say 99% of all supplement brands use contract manufacturers. And it's basically these manufacturers that have huge facilities that are FDA compliant, CGMP, typically, and that's some of the stuff you want to make sure that they actually have those certifications. But what they'll do is that they'll design the products for you. And there's different kinds of products that you could get made. You could get a white label generic product, like let's say if it was just like a vitamin C and you're not adding anything else to it, it could just, you're just buying like white label vitamin C, like what you would see at like Target or Walmart. But then you could also have them develop custom blends, and that's typically what we do. Is that we give them a list of criterias, ingredients that we want to build into our product, and then we have them create that product for us. So we'll go through a whole iteration phase of the flavoring, different ingredients, and then they'll give you costing for that, and work back and forth with them. And what that allows you to do is that if you have a smaller brand, such as us, that doesn't have like $100 million to be able to design these products and test it out, these guys can go and you can use their facilities. So we have like a whole R&D team through them. They develop the flavors for us. They make sure we're all FDA compliant, make sure our labels are compliant, and they'll manufacture the products for us. And then what we get is like an actual finished product.
That's really exciting, and there's a lot that goes into kind of manufacture developing R&D and then manufacturing your product and then getting it to market, of course. But Stuart, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing. I mean, and that applies for any different kind of company you want to start, like whether it's supplements, bags, fitness equipment, etc. And that's really kind of like one of the actionable kind of things if you wanted to take away from this webinar, like how you could start your own brand. And and then the question is like, how do you find those manufacturers, right? And for what we do is that there's different trade shows. Like for example, we would go to Supply Side West in Vegas, and there's literally hundreds of different vendors for sports supplements and powders, like in that kind of category. But if you didn't have the resources to go fly around to all these different trade shows, the other really good hack that I would say to do is to go on their websites and just look for the exhibitor list. And you'll have a whole list of different suppliers that are going to actually be there at the trade show, and then contact them directly. But it's always better to go in person if you can afford it, because they look at you as like being serious about starting a company, right? So that's how I would say to source it. Yeah, that's one of the different strategies. I'm just thinking in my head all the different strategies. But if you wanted to start a company and you're looking for manufacturers, that's how I would find it, instead of doing it yourself. I see a lot of people try to start by doing it themselves, but the problem with that is that they'll never have the ability to scale. Like for example, our manufacturers have over 100,000 square foot facility. They can produce, I think it's about like over 100,000 jars a day, and they just have the capacity and to manufacture, and they take away that kind of concern out of your business, and you can focus on marketing.
Stuart, that those were really important comments about like advice and hacks to help you kind of get off the ground if you're starting up your own brand. I'm gonna ask a couple of hard follow-up
Yeah,
questions. We know in Hawaii, manufacturing locally is very hard.
right.
Um, do you ever see a vision, and whether this is your industry or others, that Hawaii as a state could actually increase or improve their manufacturing capabilities that would not only support your business but other businesses out there?
Yeah, I think for like our specific business, protein powders, sports supplements, typically they're heavier. Our average shipment weight is about 2 to 3 pounds, and it makes it really expensive to ship from Hawaii. So I think you have to be very creative how to run a business that's profitable from Hawaii. Like how are you going to be able to ship out product from Hawaii? How are you going to be able to manufacture product? Now if you're talking about raw material, you got to ship down whey protein, casein protein, all the different vitamins that are very heavy. I don't really see the ability to manufacture our products in Hawaii. I mean, first of all, there's no one that's actually even blending it here in Hawaii. um, but as far as like manufacturing in general, I do think like if you had other kind of industries where it's like a sustainable resource, like say if it was like spring water that is already going to flow into the ocean kind of deal, that makes sense to me. But as far as manufacturing protein powders here in Hawaii, I don't really see that as being sustainable. It's going to drive up the cost too much, and it doesn't really make sense because you're going to end up shipping it back to the mainland anyway to be able to sell to your customers. About like 85% of our customers are actually on the mainland, so we don't really do a whole ton of actual sales here in Hawaii. But you know I still see like, I think you would have to be creative is basically what I'm saying. Like if you're to run a business over here, maybe there's certain aspects that are really marketable from Hawaii. Like that's why we have a facility over here, because it's very aspirational. We could run the marketing side of it here in Hawaii, but the actual nuts and bolt manufacturing is on the mainland where the heavy lifting would be done.
Yeah, I know that was a really challenging question because we know a lot of local businesses can't manufacture in Hawaii. And when we talk about that made in Hawaii brand. And, you know, there's a state, it's legislated that to be called a made in Hawaii product, 50% plus of your product has to be sourced and locally made here. And, you know, those who don't fit in that mold, it's not because they don't want to or they don't desire to, it's they physically can't run their type of business and source those many things locally or manufacture or sew or whatever that business is. So super tough question, but I felt like I had to ask it. Can you talk about, are there any of your sourcing of your products? Are you able to source anything local or have local inspired flavors in your profiles? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so as far as flavors go, we try to do a lot of tropical stuff, but like for example, our pre is a passion orange guava flavor. We do, we're coming out with like a mango. We have like strawberry kiwi, those kind of flavors. But it's really not sourced here in Hawaii because it's not scalable. I don't think you're gonna actually be able to do that. Um, but we do try to make like some of the flavors have that tropical because it's a lot of the marketing standpoint. But if we were to like go back to like that previous question we were talking about, like the made in Hawaii, to me, like that's very arbitrary, because for example, you could have like a t-shirt that you print on and they say, oh, well, it's made in Hawaii, but actually the fibers are from Vietnam or China. So, really like in our global economy, if I was an entrepreneur, or like talking to other future entrepreneurs, I would say to focus on the demand, focus on, the cash flow. That was one principle that I always learned from, that I took away from my entrepreneurship programs was cash flow is king. And thinking about demand, like sell the products to your customers, figure out what they want and bring in the cash flow. Then you can kind of work out all the logistics, work out all the problems. Because if you don't have cash, you're gonna have a lot of problems, and cash solves a lot of problems.
Correct. That's a good point. And you use a lot of vocabulary that can tell everybody that you went, you studied business in school, which is really important for folks to hear. You know, when we talk, go back to your products, and
Yeah.
we want to kind of get a walking tour pretty soon. But, you know, I used to be an athlete. There are a lot of people, adults out there who aren't, you know, athletes anymore, but they exercise or they try to stay healthy. Do you have products that aren't for athletes or high endurance, you know, workout folks?
Yeah, I feel that everyone with a body is basically an athlete for us. Like our target demographic is from, typical customers probably about age 25 to, 40 years old. They're a little bit older, in that regard, like not your typical like high school to college kind of age athlete. And it's a person who's conscious about like what they're actually putting in their body, what they're actually ingesting. So, yeah, to answer that question, vast majority of our athletes or our customers are not like professional athletes. They're regular people that are, still exercising, worried about what they're putting in their body. The best analogy I would say is like a grass-fed steak. They still like to push the edge and like to work out hard, but they want to have a high quality protein.
That's important. So for those who may take a protein drink supplement just to supplement, like usually at breakfast or before a workout, like, you know, this could be a product that's for them, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like pushing my own product right now, but yeah, yeah, that basically answers it. Yeah, a lot of people supplement for breakfast.
Awesome. So that means everyone could try your product and use it. So it's really exciting. You know, we want to learn more about ATH Sport. I think the best way to do that, since we're at your facility in our Kakaʻako, is to be there and do a little bit of a tour. So can you show us around
Sure.
your facility and talk more about your business?
Yeah, maybe you can turn on the audio over here. So if you want to show this area, let's see what you're actually seeing. Yeah, so this is our open work area that we have with our team here in Hawaii. If you go over there, you can show up this room. This is basically just our break room. So this is like our break room. There's a small little area. And then this is where we run all of our fulfillment. for all our Hawaii orders are over here. Get like this angle. So this is where we do all our Hawaii fulfillment, all our orders, and then it show like the mats and the. So this is, I want to see what you're saying. That way. Yeah. So this is basically like our weight equipment, which is kind of weird. Like people don't really understand like why we would have this facility, but this is how we generate all of our content marketing for all of our Facebook ads and social media. And so these are also our mats. So yeah, and then if you come this way, you can show this. So like what you'll see is these are our mats and our heavy bags. And again, like that's how we film all of our ads. And then this is like a new thing that we're trying to build out is our actual kitchen over here. So this is still a work in progress. But what we plan on doing with this is to be able to shoot all of our recipes. You could show like, so this is basically a mock-up of what we're building out here. So that's what the end goal that we're basically want to build. And if we move back out, this is kind of like the kitchen just in progress. But yeah, that's basically our facility here in Hawaii. And then we have 3 fulfillment centers on the mainland that we ship out our actual products from. So this really is just all of our marketing kind of material and content.
Can I have a seat?
Maybe we could talk in there. Like I think I kind of like to hear us. They have like more questions. They got to do the whole Q&A, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's basically the facility that we have over here in Hawaii.
Awesome.
Show.
Okay, so as Stuart kind of gets resettled, mahalo Stuart for showing us your space and your physical facility in Kakaʻako. You know, we want to talk a little bit more and answer a few more questions and jump into our Q&A. So we know we're still in a pandemic that hasn't changed, unfortunately, and you know, a lot of people in business and community are using the term pandemic pivot. So the question is, how has your business been able to adjust or pivot or be impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, so, you know, for us, fortunately, because how we were positioned, we're the digital native vertical brand, we were already online. And so fortunately for us, you know, we saw a lot of customers were forced to shop online. And so, you know, what we did to be able to pivot was that we started to offer more immunity kind of based products like D3, zinc, quercetin, you know, those kind of products that a lot of customers had very high demand in. Yeah, so we've been very fortunate during COVID to be able to, you know, be successful and like stick around. And then in fact, we were actually able to grow our sales because of that.
That's amazing. And, you know, I think that e-commerce, having that set up before the pandemic, those who kind of maybe focused on physical in-person sales really had to do a lot of pivot in a similar space. I guess any other insights that you want to share about how the pandemic has either helped or impacted or advice to other businesses who are really still trying to hang on and survive?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think it really depends on the type of business that you're running. you know, like I said, for us, you know, it was very easy for us to, you know, ship product. That was already like, that was one of the reasons why we started the sports supplement company, was because, you know, our packages are about 2 to 3 pounds. They're easy to ship through the mail. If you were selling furniture, it'd be very hard to ship, you know, especially if you were trying to ship from Hawaii. But what I would say is, you know, again, like, adapt, improvise, and overcome. Try to learn the digital space, you know, figure out how to acquire customers, how to retain customers. Um, yeah, you know, I'm just thinking in my head, like, actionable actual hacks that people can do. Uh, you know, and revenue is basically average order value times customer acquisition times frequency. That's basically how you would generate more revenue for a company. So it'd be, you know, revenue equals customer acquisition, which is basically the number of new customers that you have, the average times the average order value, you know, how much a person actually averages spends with your company. Like for us, we average about $80 an order, and then times the amount of times that guys will spend in a year. So for us, like, guys will typically average out of all our customers, they'll spend about twice a year. And if you try to think about your business in those pillars, and you try to increase just one pillar by 30%, another pillar by 30%, another pillar by 30%, you would double your sales in a year. So if you're asking about, like, how would you pivot, that would basically be my roundabout way of saying, you know, to me, you have to focus on digital space, developing digital strategies to be able to grow your brand. Those are the three different pillars that we look at: is customer acquisition, order frequency, and average order value. Instead of giving you guys like just a super generic, like, oh yeah, go do Facebook ads or whatever, you know what I mean? That would be a
You know,
tactical way.
yeah, that's really, really important key areas. And thank you for kind of sharing, I guess, real personal strategies on how you run your business. There's a question relating to that about, you know, your logo and your brand. So a question came in, can you describe the process you went through to define or design your catchy logo?
Yeah,
So
actually,
it's kind of, we talked about the name of your business, but now the brand and how you designed it.
yeah, actually, when we created the logo, you know, I at first I went to, and this is kind of an interesting story. When I first developed the brand, I went to like a super expensive graphic design place. I think we spent like, I want to say like $3,000 to try to design the logo. And at the time, I didn't have $3,000 to spend. It was really foolish and stupid of me to go and spend $3,000 on a logo. Went through that whole iteration, didn't feel like it really spoke of the brand. I went on, I think it was like Fiverr, some outsourced site where you could get designers, had them produce a whole bunch of designs. Um, Kind of felt like I didn't really like that after like X amount of time. I think it was like maybe like a year or 6 months, something like that. And then I ended up just using a font, going on Adobe Illustrator and tweaking it how I wanted it to look, like just a regular script kind of um, font, and then just change the path to, you know, have a little swoosh at the end. But yeah, so the lessons that I would learn from that is like to be a lot more frugal and like scrappy with every little dollar you spend. And when you start your own company, that's what you'll realize is like you have to be creative, you have to stretch your budget. It's not like the typical thing that, you know, you learn in school. It's like, how do you create constrained resources, create innovation? You have to be innovative. Like, you have to be able to stretch your dollar, you have to be able to figure out how to accomplish your marketing objectives. But like Fiverr, Dribble, Behance, those are all good resources to try to find graphic designers. 99 Designs, yeah, those are all good resources if you're trying to design your own label or a logo.
Super important. And you know, someone did ask a question too about, do you have physical therapy opportunities within your business at your physical location?
No, we don't. Like our actual location, we don't actually have any classes or courses. That's what I was kind of mentioning. I don't know if you were able to hear the audio out there, but basically our facility is set up just like a set, like a movie set. Like we work out on the same equipment and like train on the mats, but we don't actually have any classes. It's really just stuff that we're trying to create content for. When we have our athletes in town, we invite them to come by, to build the culture and to build the marketing. But we don't have any open like physical therapy classes or group classes here.
Mahalo, Stuart. People asked a little bit about, as you were building that marketing brand and e-commerce, are you on Instagram, or what social media do you use to market your product, and how did you decide on what social media platforms to utilize for your business?
Yeah, so we're on all the major social media platforms like Instagram. It's athsport.co. We're on Facebook, Twitter. Yeah, so we kind of cover all of those. But like if you're talking about like how you would actually build a brand through social media is basically a pay to play kind of program, meaning that you have to pay to get exposure. And that's through paid digital, paid ads. So, there's a lot of really good resources out there to be able to study paid advertisement, and how to build different marketing funnels within those platforms. But what I would say is that Facebook owns Instagram. That's one of our primary customer acquisition channels, but it is getting a lot more expensive. So that's something that you have to balance, and you have to figure out your break even kind of costs. What can you afford to spend on it, and how to calculate your ad spend. That's like one of the fundamentals. So like if I was to answer that, like Facebook ads, if you wanted to study more about that, there's a bunch of different resources that I would recommend. Like maybe Ezra Firestone is one of the first guys. I think he actually graduated from Kuku, but he has a digital marketing agency and his own brand that they cover a lot of different Facebook ad strategies. There's a ton of different resources to go and research that. I would have to give you like a list.
Mahalo, Stuart. We've been receiving a lot of great chatter on our Q&A. So again, if anybody out there, we're slowly, partially evolving into our Q&A section. But if you do have questions, I know some folks were putting them in the chat. Just housekeeping, if you could put them in the Q&A, we'll be able to start to kind of queue those up for Stuart and address some of them as we go along. So Stuart, great questions coming from the chat. Ikaika is asking a question about, startup capital. Where did you receive? You talked about the stressors of, getting cash to start your business. Did you receive any initial startup capital, or did you participate in any incubators, whether local or national incubators?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any money to start up. The first order, I think we placed like 250 bottles, and I think they might have cost like about 10 or 15 bucks a bottle, and I put it on my credit card. So I didn't have any access to any money at a time, and then I just flipped that and started kind of building up from there. And then once I started to show a profit and actually had financials, I got a small business loan through Central Pacific Bank. But yeah, I didn't have any money, and really, I didn't participate in any incubators at all. But like I said, I was on different like forums online from other successful entrepreneurs, and that's where I learned a lot of the actual strategies. And it, like I said, when you have constrained budgets, it forces you to be innovative and creative. So yeah, I wouldn't probably recommend to just put it on your credit card like that, but that was the risk that I took because I was confident that I could figure out a way to flip it. They always talk about like friends, families, and fools, but I would just say you have to be very careful. There's a lot of disclosure, kind of financial disclosures that you have to make available if you are to take money from families and friends if they're not accredited investors. So I would do research into that. Just Google accredited investors. I think it's like they have to have $1 million in assets. They have to have, I think it's $200,000 in the past 2 years before you take money from people. Because I've heard horror stories from other people that have taken money from non-accredited investors. So I'd just be careful, like pitching to your family and friends about starting up your own business. Try to build up like your own money yourself, so that if you risk it, you don't owe anyone else or potentially have legal problems about that.
That's really important. And sticking onto this theme of financing for your business, we have an amazing supporter of entrepreneurship in the room and trainer, Max Mukai from the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, who's also an alum. He's asking, what other sources of financing have you been seen to be impactful for businesses wanting to scale, especially locally here in Hawaii, whether that's through loans, grants, equity investment opportunities? What are some of those other pathways you see that help businesses scale without getting into like financial debt or other things like that?
Wait, could you read that question off? I think I missed like the critical part of that. What was that?
Yeah, so what sources of financing have you seen to be the most impactful to scale?
Um, like I said, I didn't really have any access to finance. Because I bootstrapped the company from scratch. I haven't taken any outside money. So obviously, and I guess if you start to think about that really in depth, it's kind of interesting, because I think if you ask the average person, if I gave you $1 million, what would you do with that $1 million? And that's the same thing I like contact or like talk to our team about, is that if we had more capital, like say for example, you had like $5 million, what exactly would you do? Like, would you end up hiring another person to replace our team? You know what I mean? Like, how would you actually implement that money? Like, cash solves a lot of problems, but at the end of the day, you can't just throw money at like a problem. Like, you have to think critically. And I think it's all like in our head. Really, it's about like knowledge. Like, the smarter you are, the more impactful. Like, of course, if you have more money, you could scale up your ideas, and that's a big benefit. But just thinking that you're going to have money is not going to always fix your problem. Like, you have to have sound systems already developed, and it's probably better that you don't have money so that you don't risk it all. Like, if I had $1 million when I first started the company, I probably would have spent, I said I spent $3,000 on our logo. I probably would have spent $50,000 on our logo. I didn't know better at the time.
Those are really important points. And we know it's costly to ship product, especially if there's local businesses here in Hawaii. I know you have your distribution locations, but how do you ship your products? Do you use USPS or another form? So what carrier, and have you explored less processed materials that can be made here in Hawaii?
Yeah, so like I said, in Hawaii, we only ship out products here locally. So products that are going to be shipped to the actual state of Hawaii. And we use USPS for that. On the mainland, we use a fulfillment center. So they call them 3PLs. The current fulfillment center that we use is called Rakuten Super Logistics. And we use a variety of different carriers to them. We use DHL. They have their own carrier called First Mile that takes like the first leg of the delivery and then gives it to USPS or DHL. We use UPS and we use FedEx as well. So we pretty much use everyone. And that allows a smaller brand like us to leverage big discounts from that are offered to big brands. Like if you look at Amazon, like when I was living on the mainland, Amazon gives you, if you pay for like Prime, you get 2-day free delivery, right? How do those guys get it? Well, they have steep discounts that small businesses don't have access to unless you use 3PLs. And that's kind of like thing is like, you got to figure out a way to accomplish it. How are you going to work in your costs to be able to be profitable? And that's how we do it. We use 3PLs.
Thank you, Stuart. You know, it is not easy to be an entrepreneur, and a lot of people want to know, what do you like most about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, generally speaking, I think entrepreneurship is like the best way to control your own destiny. It's super high risk, but if you believe in yourself, you're innovative, you're scrappy, you'll be able to survive. And that to me is what always interested me about entrepreneurship. It was being able to have, freedom. It's not all the general kind of things like people talk about, like, oh, you could be your own boss, or there's obviously a lot of like catches to that kind of thinking. But if you really believe that it's the single biggest way to control your own destiny, to create opportunity for yourself, that's what resonates with me. Like, that's what I like about entrepreneurship the most. It's not about like being your own boss, or, oh, well, you don't have to work as hard. I think it's the opposite. When, I'm working pretty much around the clock, but I can wear whatever I want. I can wear a hat to work or wear shorts and slippers, but I'm putting in like, this is like my baby, and this is like what I'm sacrificing to try to build.
You know, you spoke to it a little, you know, there's the wonderful parts of being an entrepreneur. What are some of the just challenges being an entrepreneur? And then how do you push through some of those challenges?
Yeah, there's a never ending list of challenges, I think, of being an entrepreneur. You know, I don't know, you could take a you could take a stab at it. Like, you know, you have to wear like so many different hats, from marketing to like finance to actually like grabbing a drill and building out like the kitchen. That's, I'm building out that stuff as well. What was the second half of your question?
The second half is, one question came in the chat. When there are challenging times as an entrepreneur, how do you overcome it?
Um,
How do you push forward?
I mean, I think you have to like, you know, kind of like just bite down your mouthpiece and push through. There's a really good saying that I heard before. I forget who it was. It was like some really successful entrepreneur. Might have been like Ben Horowitz. I think it might have been Dan Kawasaki actually that said it. Is like, just keep the lights on. Like, just keep going. Like, it's gonna be super hard. I think it's the hardest thing that I've ever done, was start the business from scratch. And if I could have quit, I probably would have quit. But I was so invested in it that I couldn't quit. So, yeah, I guess if you just keep the lights on is probably my best advice. Like, just, one foot in front of the other, and just keep going, and just try to get to the next day. And when you look back on it, you're going to be like, holy crap, this is like how much we've done.
So, you know, we had a question come in the chat from Mark about, you know, how do you do your R&D to create some of your recipes and some of those flavor profiles? Do you have a chef that helps with that to do your R&D, or how do you go about that process?
So now that we have a full R&D team up at our contract manufacturers, where they have like flavor experts, they have like a whole sports nutrition division, and we'll give them like insights about what we're trying to do. Like, hey, we want a pre-workout. Our pre-workout is designed, like, we have 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is very little compared to other pre-workouts. Most pre-workouts will have like 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine. So we tell our guys that, hey, we want to develop a pre-workout that is like clinically shown to increase endurance. Like, we're trying to not be a high stim. We're the opposite. We're a low stim, that our primary focus is that we want to increase time to fatigue, like basically a scientific way of saying, I don't want to get as tired quickly. I want to be able to train longer. And, do you guys have any specific ingredients that are like clinically proven to show that? Well, they came back to us, for example, and they said, oh, well, Pico 2 is an adaptogen blend. It's a mushroom blend that, here's the studies behind it. it fits your guys' brand, it fits your profile. It's all natural. They use organic mushrooms, and it shows to increase your endurance. Okay, well, let's use that. What is the amount of a dosage that we need to do to be able to be beneficial? 1 gram. Okay, let's throw in a gram of that. What's the cost, etc. So that's kind of how we do the R&D of that. But when I first started, I didn't have access to those bigger teams, and it was just reading sports books, like scientific books about like how much protein is like your daily requirement for an athlete, that kind of deal.
So we want to go back a little to your time at Kamehameha.
Yeah.
Was there a particular, we kind of asked this in the collegiate setting, but now we're going to take it back to your experience as a student at Kamehameha. Was there a particular class, club, sport that kind of helped support foundations of making you interested in entrepreneurship or laying some of those skill sets?
Yeah, I don't know if I could really think of like honestly like a specific class or instance at Kamehameha Schools that pushed me towards entrepreneurship. Throughout high school, I was always, an entrepreneur at mine. Like I was always trying to figure out ways to make money or, you know, do that kind of stuff. I was always, I don't know, it was just like my personality, I think, yeah, I don't have a specific instance that I would say with school, but like in high school, for example, I found a distributor that was selling car parts. I didn't even have a car at the time, but found a distributor that was selling car parts, and I was drop shipping car parts online. And I didn't even have my driver's license yet. So I don't know. It's weird.
I remember in school, especially in high school, there was economics course, usually I think 11th or 12th grade, and people would have to build a business, build a class, and sell something, and try to, you get that initial startup capital. Who's the president, vice president? You build your board, and then you sell something, and I think you have the whole semester to do so. Did you take that economics class, or you remember building a business in school?
Like I said, I was building like an actual, like my own little hustle on the side, like with the car parts. I don't remember taking that in economics, but I did take I remember there was like an economics course and we were doing like stock investments, that kind of thing. But I don't remember actually building like a mock company or anything like that when I was in school.
Well, if we talk about, giving advice to those that are students at Kamehameha right now, there may be students listening in. What kind of advice would you give them to just inspire them into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, if entrepreneurship, and I think entrepreneurship is not right for every single person, but if that's something that you actually truly believe in and that kind of stuff really resonates with you, I would say to be proactive. Like how I mentioned earlier, is that I wish I did more internships. I wish I would have, I always had good grades, but in high school, and I'm sure they all hear this, but in high school, I would get A's, and then I'd be like, okay, I can kind of slack off. I only need a 3.0. And I would say it wasn't until college where I was like, no, keep adding, fuel to the fire, keep pushing, keep striving to be better, because it's not cool to be like a stoner kind of guy or whatever. When you get out into the real world, it's like the coolest people are people that have their own business or are successful in their endeavor, and that comes from putting in hard work. Don't be lazy, figure out, take initiative. Don't care what other people think about you, because those guys are probably not going to be super cool later on in life. They're probably going to be working crappy jobs. You know what I mean? You have to really invest in yourself and, figure out what you want to do. And have you ever read that book from Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 or the Outliers, the 10,000 hours?
Yep,
and
Outliers.
I think that, yeah, have you read that book?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's very interesting to me, because I think that's true. Like if you figured out what exactly you want to do, the sooner you can, the more, and you stick to it, you'll be more successful. Like whatever it is, like you have 10,000 hours that you've, focused on your craft. If you get to that point, you're going to be way ahead of the competition. And for me, like I got lucky because out of like, what would you say? I don't know, maybe ignorance or something. I started the company when I was younger, and I didn't know how hard it was going to be. But I put in, I started in 2012. So, we're almost at like 10 years. And then now like things are starting to hit its stride. Like I remember seeing an interview with the GoPro founder, and they called it a classic 10-year overnight success is what they called it. Basically, he was saying that people don't see all the hard work that you put in behind the scenes. And then they look at like when the company is big and successful, and they think it just came like overnight. So put the hard work in when nobody's looking, and you stick to it. Like after, 10 years, you're going to be successful.
Mahalo for that, Mana'o, Stuart. Just for everybody listening, one other advice that we can glean from what you shared is that not only does it take a lot of hard work, it does take a lot of research. You reference a lot of different thought leaders in entrepreneurship. It looks like you've read a lot of books in entrepreneurship to just, understand the game and the systems. But, pivoting back to ATH Sport, what tell us a little bit about your plans for the future, what the next couple of years will look like for your business. What do you see?
Yeah, like I want to build ATH into like a household brand, be a market leader in natural sports supplements. That's kind of the vision that I want to see. Eventually, like our big high level kind of revenue things is that we want to grow the company to like $100 million kind of company. Like that would be a major player in the sports supplement market. So that's kind of like what we talk about with our team is where we want to shoot for. We want to be, competitive. Like we want to have big goals and big aspirations. We don't want to just be a small, local brand. We want to, be competing with like all the biggest brands out there.
That's amazing. And Stuart, to help support the growth of your local market, how do we just listening in, if we're really passionate about what you shared today, how do we support you, or what is the process if we are interested in trying your products? Where do we start?
Yeah, check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. athsport.co is our Instagram handle. You can check us out on our website. It's athsport.co. So no S at the end. athsport.co, like company, is our URL.
Mahalo, Stuart. And, just one last, I guess I'll give the floor to any last comments or feedback as we close. We're just really grateful for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for featuring us.
Mahalo, Stuart. Let's give Stuart kind of a virtual mahalo, a round of applause for his time today. Hearing your story and all the mana'o you shared, Stuart, is just really inspiring for people here, whether they're students thinking about entrepreneurship or thinking about what are those next steps in their career path, or if it's folks running their own business, or those understanding that pandemic pivot. Maybe there's people thinking out there, gosh, the hustle's been really hard, but maybe I want to dip my feet into being an entrepreneur myself. So we're really just grateful for all that you shared to tell us that entrepreneurship journey story. It was really inspiring. So thank you, Stuart. And again, ATH Sport, can find them on their website or via social media. And we wish you and your business all the best for your future, Stuart. Mahalo.
Yeah, thank you.